Heroes of Lockdown! Shmitty. Hello everyone, and how's the apocalypse treating you? Hopefully it's treating you well. I'm here with Shmitty from Steel Strategy blog and the Unnamed podcast. You still haven't come up with a name for that, right?
No, I think that we've just embraced that's the name at this point. Yeah.
Fair enough. But welcome to the
Yeah.
show. We'll have a link
Thank
to
you.
all the stuff down in the description. So if you want to check out what we're talking about, definitely do. In terms of the blog and the podcast, they're both great resources for the community. So I got a question about dumpster fire. So I said I'd bring you on, but we'll also have a talk about the other things that you do in the Star Wars world. I figured you'd be a better man to answer any questions on how dumpster fire should look in 1.5 than somebody randomly netlisting off you. But anyway, how'd you first get into Star Wars Armada, Shmitty?
Well, I grew up on Star Wars. I'm old, and that was just my childhood. And so any kind of Star Wars games were there. So when Fantasy Flight put out X-Wing, I was all over that, and I loved X-Wing. And then they said, wait, but capital ships. I'm like, even better. And so I was into Armada right from the get-go. And I live on the west coast of the U.S., but every chance I get, in the summer, I'll go to Gen Con, which is in the Midwest U.S., and it's just a big event for gaming and whatever. And so I that first summer that Armada was out was just one of the cooler experiences. So they had the first North American championships there at Gen Con, and like all the developers that had written Armada were there judging the game, and everybody wanted to know like what's going to happen because there hadn't been like a tournament before then, And so I ended up I was like the only person out of 60 players who had Garm, which, given that at that point there were 6 admirals in the game, it was pretty funny.
He was not well loved at the start.
He was not well loved at the start, but I took second place there with Garm, and the fleet that I had that was a 300 point event. Somebody expanded the fleet I had to 400 points and won Worlds the first year. But everybody was really, after the event and what was going on, we're talking about how it went and just my conversations with the judges. And there was just a lot of curiosity about it, especially on the FFG forums. So I wrote up just a really long post, like on the flight home, about my experiences with the fleet, kind of round by round breakdown and what I saw, and put it there. And I was like, actually, that was kind of fun, just sort of. It was like externally processing. I got better at the game by doing that. So I said, well, what the heck? So I started a blog. And it was initially concentratefire.blogspot.com or something to that effect. And so I started writing there, and I wrote there for a good couple of years. And what I found was my life was getting busy. And so, I had side conversations with Biggs at Steel Squadron, is what he was at the time, and also Chris Truthiness. He had his own blog. I think it was You Can't Handle the Truthiness or something along those lines. And so we decided just to merge our 3 blogs together. So that was pretty fun. And then I didn't feel the pressure of like, oh, I'm never writing, because one of us was always writing something. Along the way, I actually started a YouTube channel, also called Concentrate Fire, where I've got some different videos on how to do different formations when you're flying.
I think I saw one on the echelon or something like that.
Yeah, I've got them on like echelons and how to do gun lines, how to deal with activation advantage. Because a lot of things, I did that because as much as you can try to blog some of that stuff, just video is a better medium for showing how to position things.
Yep.
So I've got those, but I haven't done one of those in years, mostly I haven't had a topic I really wanted to talk about there. And then last year, November, I hadn't done any writing over the summer, but I was enjoying like conversations about Armada. And so Biggs and I started decided, hey, let's try a podcast, and we did it, and it turned out people liked listening to it, which I mean surprised us because we were just goofing around. And so we actually had some people help. We were like, well, do we want to throw the money at the hosting service? I don't know, whatever. So some people contributed to us on Patreon, so we were able to buy reasonable mics and um, cover the cost of the hosting service, and then we've put out like 35 podcasts or something like that, which is just ridiculous.
Yikes, that is...
Yeah, and so we get on there and we talk about whatever, and it's just been a lot of fun because as much as gaming is kind of fun to write about or think about, it's a shared experience when you're playing with it. And so being able to have conversations with people about, hey, here's what's going on, and this is what I'm liking and not liking, that's just a lot of fun. And so we bring guests on and we talk about the game, and it's fun to just geek out together. So that's kind of how I ended up blogger, podcaster, video, whatever for Armada. And yeah, good times.
So we know your main Galactic Civil War faction is Garm. It's not Rebels, it's just Garm, let's be honest.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Which of the new factions are you picking up, or are you planning to take a look at?
I'm all in on droids. Yeah, Separatists, the Munificent is just a wonderful ship. I love that thing. There's other aspects of the things that we are enjoying as well. But that's, yeah, the Separatists are definitely what might go to for that. I love Kraken as a... if you look on the playtest credits for Wave 9, you'll find my name on there, and there are things that I love coming about Wave 10. So yeah, just really, really enjoying that faction a lot.
Cool. Yeah, I suppose Munificence means never having to navigate, which is
it
odd.
really does. Yeah, it's such a wonderful ship, and I think I've been flying Peltas for so long with Rebels that I'm used to flying Speed 2 ships. So the Speed 2 part of it just does not bother me at all. I can totally deal with that. So I love it. It's a fun ship. The Hard Cell is a better ship than I thought it was going to be, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to getting more table time with those things.
Yeah, the Hard Cell is just so bloody survivable at times, and you're just like, this was a Nebulon, it would be dead, but it's not. It's a Hard Cell, so it's fine. And you're like, how does that even work?
It's weird how survivable it is, but it's a fun ship. So it's at first you want to say, oh, it's just a hammerhead. It's like, no, it's different than a hammerhead. It's different than a Nebulon. It falls somewhere in between. It has a little bit of pelta to it, but it's got some speed. So I don't know. I enjoy it.
Yeah. I know it is definitely a bit of fun. For me, when I play Separatists, I'm still kind of grappling with the squad aspect of it because I just get wrecked. I get my squads all blown up, but I think that's more I'm not used to playing Imperial squadrons. I think for people with experience with Imperial squadrons as well, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, I tend to go easy mode with my Separatist squadrons and just do tri-fighters and reserve hangar decks. And it's like, okay, I mean, they're pretty all around. They're fast. They've got counter. You blow them up, they come back. They still have counter. I mean, and the black anti-ship die without bomber is still plenty effective enough. So that's been my sort of go-to there.
Yeah, I think Reserve Hangar Bay is kind of tied with Link Turbo Laser turrets of the two best old cards that are taking up slots in the new faction.
I'd say so.
The Reserve Hangar Bay torrents as well, which are a plague.
Yes, they are, and those are fantastic. So, yeah, it's fun for sure.
Yeah. So we got a question about how you'd upgrade Dumpster Fire to 1.5. So the version that was mentioned, and this seems definitely not 1.5, is the Star Cruiser Garm Nav Teams Strategic Advisor, which obviously is no more. Hammerhead Scout with slave turrets, Pelta with Ahsoka and fighter coordination teams, Yavaris, X-Wings, Biggs, Jan, VCX, and Gold Squadron.
Yep.
And it has Station Assault, which in my mind is no longer compatible with any with Honored Your Land, Contested Outpost, which is probably the same, and Intel Sweep. So can you upgrade that version, or would you just skip ahead to your latest creations?
So that version is, that's the one that I won Gen Con with. And so that's even pre-Rebellion in the Rim and, Wave 8 and before 1.5. So can that version, the simplest change there is, obviously Strategic Advisor goes out the airlock. And I think you just sub in Lando, throw him on the Liberty and call it good. I don't know that I'd play that objective set. I don't know, but otherwise, it's fine. I think throw Lander in there and Strat Advisor, fine. So the point of Dumpster Fire in all of its many versions, I mean, there's like a Tarkin's Trash Compactor Fire, there's whatever, but is to take Intensify Firepower and use that to then not put firepower upgrades on your ships, but then take ships that normally might be squadron pushers and let them fight better. And so you've kind of and no flotillas. You're trying to get 4 ships that can shoot. You're trying to bring enough squadrons to hang in the squadron game. You're using Intensify Firepower to not look necessarily for big spikes of damage, but keep your damage floor really high, and then just pour attacks on people. I don't have anything to try to generate extra accuracies. I'm not trying to intel officer around this. I just want to make you burn your tokens out.
Yep.
And it's really effective. It's a different approach. I've got 4 combat ships, and Yavaris is in there, and normally people are okay, I'm going to set Yavaris just right up so I can do the thing and double tap and whatever. I'm like, that's not how I flew Yavaris in that fleet. I was like, how can I double arc people with it? Because with Intensify Firepower, I've got, the damage floor is so high that thing is doing a good amount of damage if I can get in there and double arc with it. And it's a pretty easy ship to double arc with. So I'd kind of catch people by surprise in that I'm taking the Pelta command, I'm taking the Yavaris, and I'm aggressively double arcing with them. And
yeah, the idea of a Nebulon B double arcing just gives me stress as the Nebulon player going, but its side arc is exposed. But then again, it didn't cost you that much.
No, it's a Nebulon escort with Yavaris, and who cares? I mean, it's gonna die. You bring Yavaris, that ship is not surviving through the game because it's gonna have a giant target on its head. So I was flying it to maximize what I could get out of all I could, and so that's a little different. The other thing that made this fleet work differently is the Liberty was not the focus. I think, and that was something when I realized. Not when I initially put it together, but later on, it's like the Liberty for me was working best when it wasn't the main piece of my fleet. Like I would fly right up the middle as this sort of gun line with Yavaris, the Pelta, and the Slave Scout, and they're rolling forward, and the Liberty would just come screaming in from the side as like a flanker. That normally you might do something like with Salvation or bring Demo in from the side or whatever, treating it almost like one of those. And it just wrecked stuff, and it was great, but it just wasn't like my maneuver focus.
Yeah.
Those 3 objectives I had were all about I wanted to know where the fight was going to be, and that's a big deal for me because I'm trying to set up flanks. I'm trying to make people choose which, give them tension and choosing which direction I want to go. And so by having contested outpost station assault, and I think for a while I was, put in Doom Station, I could, if I knew where the fight has to be, it lets me maneuver around that. Like they've got to point this direction and I can make them take some bad choices. So when Primes rolled around last year, I ran different versions of this. There was one where I stripped out fighter coordination team and the VCX in gold and change the squads around a little bit to turn the Slave Scout into a naked MC-30 torpedo, which was an interesting experience because, and it was naked, just 63 points. But that thing is hilarious because again, I've got IF, so I've got just that little bit of dice fixing, but I would just throw it right into the middle and be like, okay, deal with it. It's just tough
63
enough to be
points.
and it's 63 points.
And it's even more survivable in 1.5.
Yeah. And so I've had versions of it with that. I think I haven't rebuilt it yet because I've been fooling around with separatists and other things. But my theory would be, again, probably Avaris, probably the Pelta Command with Intense 5 firepower, and then to see if I can make one that has a pair of assault frigates with reactive gunnery. And just say,
Why? Okay, this is the thing. Why is everybody building assault frigates with reactive gunnery rather than MC-30s with reactive gunnery?
the range.
True.
It's really just about the range. But I'm thinking a pair of assault frigates with reactive gunnery to replace in the fleet we've been discussing, the Slave Scout and the Liberty, because again, the number of shots.
Yeah.
And this fleet is not about a big haymaker like you're going for with, like an Avenger or an Onager or whatever.
Yeah.
This is about, I'm going to bury you in dice. And it doesn't matter what defense tokens you have, ECM you have, whatever, if I'm hitting you with 6 attacks around.
Yeah.
And that's the whole theory behind how this fleet functions. So my thought was, well, a couple of assault frigates in there, they work well with the Intensify Firepower boost. Give them reactive. It's like, okay, shoot me, and you're just going to get shot more.
Would you go with the A or the B?
I don't think I could afford the. I'd love to have the A, but I doubt I could afford it. So most likely, I'd go with the B, or maybe one of each.
Depending
I'd have
on
to sit and play.
budget.
Yeah, I'm really, the other thing, people notice about this fleet, it's upgrade light. I'd rather have more stuff. I'd rather have more attacks than more upgrades.
Well, the other thing as well is if you lose a ship to an unlucky situation, you lose a lot less in terms of MOV.
Yep, you lose a lot less. The more. So when I build fleets, I'm looking. Can I have 4 combat ships in it? 4 things that are shooting, because I can lose one of those. I've still got shots and enough shots coming at you to make a difference. So it works. I remember kind of following along on the Discord when I was winning the Gen Con tournament with this fleet, and a couple of people are like, how in the world is this fleet winning? Because it just doesn't look all that impressive on paper. And the conclusion people came to is just pressure. There's just so much pressure on your defense tokens, pressure on choosing what to do and whatever else, that nobody could handle it. Or they just weren't built to handle it. I know how to build the counter to this fleet. I'm not going to tell people how to do it, but it's interesting. So yeah, so to take it to 1.5, like in the base form, it's pretty easy. I mean, the ace limit doesn't really affect it. A lot of the other things change it. It's just throw out Strat Advisor, put in whatever other upgrade. But I think if I was playing around and trying to, like develop it to take it to Worlds or something, I'd be fooling around with a couple of assault frigates with reactive. I just think that would be fun.
So would it be, I suppose, Doom Station? Or what else? What kind of upgrades would you throw in there? Would you still keep Station Assault in the current environment?
Yeah, honestly. So here's the thing about Station Assault. 8 damage to kill a station is not trivial, right? I mean, yeah, it's onager bait. Okay, you're not shooting my ships.
This is a good point.
I mean, realistically, they had to do 8 damage, which is at least 2, maybe 3 solid attacks, right? Probably 2 solid attacks at that station that aren't going at my ships, just to break even. So if I was getting tabled, I'm probably going to lose by more because they'll take both stations out. But often you get tabled and they don't have time to get both stations. so people are like, oh, station assault, that one gets flipped. I have never had it flipped on me. I've had a station killed,
But that's
but I'm
not as
like,
flipped.
that's not flipped. And it's also like that contributes to my other ships surviving. I also get control of the stations, so I don't have to worry about, uh, fighter healing whatever shenanigans kind of come with that. Um, there's different ways to make that work. Same with, in Kano, again, it's all about forcing the fight to be in a spot. If I could find other objectives I felt did that well, I might look at them, but it's there. I haven't had the VCX in there in a while, but I might put it back in and goof around with strategic more. I think no one's playing strategic right now. I think there's room for that. And that had been kind of one of the concerns I had, was because when I brought this, I had the VCX and I had Intel sweep. And I'm like, I'm going to run into somebody with a pair of, lambdas running, sensor sweep or whatever. And
And
they're
they
going to
just
grab Intel sweep. And
strategic have just fallen off the map.
yeah, and so a single strategic thing, you don't have to go all in on it, but you could have a single strategic squad and still do that. I flipped, what was it, targeting beacons on somebody because they were like, oh no, they had, they threw it out there. I'm like, well, I've got strategic, and I was able to just flip it isn't the right word. I nullified it,
Yeah.
right? Like,
But
take your targeting.
that still means you're first player and they don't have a second player advantage, which
Yeah, good for us, right?
yeah.
So that's, I think one of the tendencies that I've seen with fleet building is for people to they're going to take something and they're going to go all in on it. Because they feel like, well, if I'm going to do it, I got to do it. Like with strategic. Like sometimes just a splash of it is enough to give you a tool in your toolbox you can use to do some fun things.
Like the amount of minefields that are suddenly making a re-emergence that I don't fully understand myself. Like the
Right.
amount of even just one to save a ship or throw an enemy mine. Would you consider advanced mining facility and just kind of put that dust field right up the center? If
Oh
it's
yeah,
a
I think in Onager World for sure. I mean, that's definitely one I can you start looking at that. I have a definite if I'm playing an objective, it better score me enough points to get a 7. Like that's just a rule I have. I won't take an objective where I can't score a 7 if we never shoot each other at all, and I'm second player, I'm getting a 7.
yeah.
And that's with any objective I play. And so I think mining facility would definitely qualify for that.
Yeah, I'm still not sure everyone knows how to play it. After the World Cup, I'm fully sure that I still don't know how to play it.
It's a different one. It's dangerous to pick if you're first player, because if someone knows what they're doing with it, they're just going to get a ton of points from you.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's just hopefully anyway. The person who asked the question is happy with that analysis. I say he can't get a better opinion on how to upgrade it. But yeah,
Yeah.
have you been playing around with any other fleets apart from Dumpster Fire that you want to tell people about? Or
I'm excited to get my Sato fleet back on the table. Just with the changes to him, that basically just that fleet has like another almost 20 points in it didn't have before.
yeah,
After assault concussion, the Sato point drop, the assault concussion missile point drop, and it really lost no effectiveness. So I'm looking forward to getting that one back on the table. That uses 4 hammerheads with task force Antilles, and then a pelta with shields to maximum, and it just turns those pelta or those hammerheads just get really tough to kill, especially you if you're trying to attack them with squads. They like whatever, they just don't care, and it's fun. And so I'm looking forward to fooling around with that, getting it on the table. I've got Kraken fleets for separatists I want to get on the table. I've got some Tarkin I want to fool around with him. Some things along those lines. There's always stuff to play around with. I still enjoyed running the Starhawk, just the big chunky thing that it is.
yeah,
That's I've got a version of the dumpster fire-ish style fleet that's got a Starhawk as the centerpiece, and that fleet's just a ton of fun to play.
I'm guessing it's not a ton of fun to play against, though. Oh, you've got a Starhawk. That's where. Oh, why are there 3 other combat ships here? Oh my God, where have all my defense tokens gone? I think I read one of your battle reports from one of those, and it was like, yeah.
I can't get 3 others with that. It's a Starhawk and 2 other combat ships and squads, because again, I can play the Starhawk without piling all the points on it, and I think that's the tendency. So, but I've got a Starhawk, I've got 2 other shooting ships. I actually have a flotilla in there just to I was using repair crews, which I think works really well with the Starhawk. And those 4 together, plus I had force, or 60 to 80 points in squads or whatever, and it's just too much pressure to deal with, but it's fun, and the model just looks cool. So I've got fleets I want to screw around with that, and in the end, Garm is still my guy. I love the tokens, I love doing all this stuff with them, and I got to stay on brand at this point, right?
Well, like whatever about him being the most powerful or not, like if you're playing any other admiral, then maybe you're making like 5 to 6 decisions with your ships in a turn. With Garm, you've got the tokens and Ahsoka, so there's never a point where you can't do anything to change what's going on. And it may not make him the most powerful, but it makes him a very interesting commander to play, if nothing else.
He is. He's very flexible. One of the fun experiences that you can pull off with a Garm fleet that you just can't do anywhere else is, if you don't spend a bunch of tokens, like turn 4, you do these Nova turns. So turn 4, you'll blow 9 or 10 defense or command tokens in the turn, reload and do it again in turn 5, and you're just doing so much stuff all at once. It's not always the most effective stuff, but you're doing it. It's just kind of fun to say, I blew 18 tokens over the course of 2 game rounds. It's fun to be able to do that kind of stuff.
And what are your normal Garm rounds these days? Are you 1-4 with the change?
Because
I find 2-4 is what I do sometimes.
I'll probably stick to 1-4. If I feel I need to be on them quickly, if I think the game might develop a little slower, I might actually do 3-5.
Okay.
I think there's some room for that. It would have been awesome if Garm didn't have the round restriction and you could have done them consecutively, because then I think the default would be 4-5, which would just be amazing.
Not 3-4?
No, 4-5. 4-5, because you can store 1 and 2, blow a bunch 3, blow a bunch 4, blow a bunch 5, and just
go mad.
Go mad with the command tokens, because why not? So that's kind of what we're thinking.
So with Truthiness being the cranky one and Biggs being the crazy singer, and you're kind of the middle road that keeps them both kind of balanced. I'm gonna pay for that. But what other kind of sites or podcasts kind of give you inspiration? They don't necessarily have to be Star Wars Armada.
Oh, sure. No, I think a big thing is just to get involved in discussions wherever they are, right? For me, I'll have just somebody will message me a question on Discord, and I'll end up having, a day-long conversation about something. And then that'll kind of develop into thinking about, oh, okay. Recently, we have our own Steel Strategy Discord, and JJ, Josiah, who has won, world championships and whatever, was jokingly said, "Hey, podcast question, how do I get good?" And that for me,
please say somebody said, "Don't fly your CR90 off the back edge of the table, please."
Pretty much. But no, I thought about that, and I'm like, well, how do you really get better at something? And I think probably the next podcast we have is I'm going to just talk about how do you get better. So a big part of just the more people you talk to, the more you have. But we have a lot of other contributors come in and talk on our show that cannot get your ship out blog. We have the guys from there on. We've talked with Krabak. We've had Ted from All Fighters Follow Me. They have another podcast. They've come on and talk with us. So just lots of different folks. I know the forums are going away here shortly, but for me, I haven't interacted as much on there lately. A lot of it's really on our Steel Strategy Discord or the General Armada Discord. I'll pop in there sometimes and do that. I haven't been doing as much gaming as I'd like to be, just given the whole pandemic lockdown shenanigans, and I'm not a vassal player, so
Have you tried Tabletop Simulator?
I have. It's not very. Both of them, I run into the same issue. A big part of gaming for me is just the tactile, moving the pieces around and doing the thing, and it's just it doesn't. No, I do lots of computer gaming and even board games on the computer on my iPad, but for whatever reason, the miniature game thing, it just hasn't worked for me. So. I'm looking forward to getting my shot in the arm and getting back out there here soon. So we'll see.
Yeah. Oh God, yes. I think we were in the Irish Facebook group, and it was like I think I said 3 months ago, how about we have the tournament in January? And somebody said jokingly, what year? And it's now that's no longer a joke. We're not quite sure. Maybe next year. But what you got? No, it is like I play both of them, but it's mainly just because Galway has like 1 to 2 players even before the pandemic, so it was kind of like a way of keeping in touch with people. I would say if you haven't tried the Tabletop Simulator in a while, give it another look, because the amount of work that's gone into it is crazy.
Okay.
But what you got? Is there anything apart from Patreon, your own Patreon, which we will link down below, and everyone, if you enjoy the unnamed podcast, definitely support it. Is there anything else you'd like to plug while you're on?
Not that I can think of. I mean, we kind of plugged everything we've got involved in, so thank you for the opportunity. But no, it's good. Stop by our Discord for sure and say hi and ask questions and whatever else. That's always good to interact with people there as well. That's what I got.
One last one. What's your favorite module to plug into a fleet of like a ship and 1 or 2 upgrades, or a ship and a squadron? What's your favorite little thing that you're trying to get in there that may or may not work?
That may or may not work. I mean, we get into those some on the podcast, but I will die on the hill that Nav Team is better than anyone thinks it is. And I that's a card where I'm like, yeah, if I can plug Nav Team in, I often will. Turning sharper is often better than going faster. And people always think engine techs, I need to go faster. It's like, no, sometimes I need to turn sharper. And I like that upgrade a lot. But and then my bread and butter though is definitely intensify firepower. I've got a whole blog post written about. I've got a Pelta problem. I can't build a rebel fleet anymore that doesn't have a Pelta in it, because I'm taking intensifier, I'm taking shields to maximum, or I'm taking some other fleet commands. So those are definitely there. I think what was the other thing that I'm loving? Any ship I can do weapon battery techs and ion cannon batteries is another little combo I'm in love with right now. So like I do that on Munificence, Starhawks. What was the other one that I had?
Have you tried it with MC75s?
Not yet, but that's another place that would go well. Munificence and the Starhawks, I'll also throw quad battery turrets. It's like, I'm slow. If you're going to fly faster than me, I'm going to get another blue dice. I'm going to turn it, I've got a 50-50 shot of turning that into an ion cannon battery crit. So that's a fun little plug-in that I like to use in a lot of places right now.
One thing I've been looking at that you might enjoy, I've been trying to build an armored cruiser with both HIEs and with assault concussion missiles.
Oh yeah, with fire control techs.
No, because if you get the double arc.
Oh, I see. 1 out of each arc. Yeah. I've done that before with fire control techs where you could do the two different crit effects at the same time, and it never really worked the way you wanted it to, but I did it anyway because that's how that works. It's like the
You have
time
to try it.
I was on a kick for a while where I was putting Jan Urso in a bunch of fleets, and I did until I actually got her thing to work and flip an objective for me, and then I could put her away, and I don't think I ever played her again. But I was like, I'm gonna make this work. I'm gonna score. Like I think I flipped I think it was an intel sweep where I was able to grab the extra token and flipped an intel sweep using Jan and won a game I wouldn't have otherwise. I'm like, awesome. That was way too much work. I'm never doing that again, but I've done it.
You have lived the dream.
There you go. Yeah.
One fleet that suddenly occurs to me. Have you tried the Leia with 5 CR90s, all with Nav Teams?
No, that would be hilarious though.
That's
Those things
that's
could.
that's the main use where I've seen them used in mass. It turns her into
Yeah.
Leia and Medine all at the one time.
The thing that I've seen, one of the places I love nav teams, and I tend to take them in Tarkin fleets now, and I have some ideas there, is on the Command Architans. Because that's a ship that could use that extra yaw here and there. It doesn't have the best nav chart as it is, but doesn't necessarily need to engine tech. And
Yep.
so there. But yeah, the nav team on that Liberty, I would always get people looking at me sideways like, nav team? Really? I'm like, oh yeah. And I could make the Liberty dance. And I can think of multiple situations where that card won me games where engine text was not going to help.
Well, the
You know,
Liberty's
it's
nav
much.
chart is terrible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely garbage. It was designed with Medine in mind. And this
Yeah.
is the way of taking Medine on the Liberty while still having Garm.
Yeah. When you need it. And it's only 4 points. And that, again, turn sharper is more important than go faster sometimes. So you could get some, like, double click inside turns without having to have a nav dial queued up on demand. And that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Like the command Architon I've never taken because of the points differential, but I suppose
Yeah.
with the nav team you get those double arcs easier, and that's where you kind of get the payback.
Yeah. And then that's another one you can throw reactive on. And because the command's got red blue, it's a little more likely to get the 2 dice on the salvo shot, which I like that there also.
Yeah, and then you've got Romedy as well if you really want to kind of make it sing. I hadn't actually thought about that. I'm going to have to take a look at my Romedy Architon fleet build again. Anyway,
Yeah.
listen, thank you so much for the time. I
Absolutely.
recommend everybody check out Steel Strategy, the unnamed podcast, and definitely join the Steel Strategy Discord. Loads of Vassal World Cup details are on there at the moment, including massive amounts of lists if you love lists. Anyway,
Yep.
hope the apocalypse finds everybody well, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you.